friends. It's a delight to be here today with Lama Owens, who's a Buddhist minister, author, activist, yoga instructor, and authorized Lama, or Buddhist teacher in the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism, and is considered one of the leaders of his generation of Buddhist teachers. He holds a Master of Divinity degree in Buddhist Studies from Harvard Divinity School and is a co-author of Radical Dharma, Talking Race, Love, and Liberation. His latest book, Love and Rage, Liberation Through Anger, was released in the June of this year, 2020. Thank you so much for taking this time to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Actually, my friend and colleague, Dr. Max Clow, a leadership scholar, and I have been reading this together every week for many months now. We've been getting a tremendous amount from it, and we're excited to expose this to others. Tell us a little bit about your journey that led you to writing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it really started in 2016, right after the elections, where a lot of folks were very upset. And as I worked with different communities and individuals, people would ask me over and over and over again what to do with the anger, and how we were going to get through 4 years of what we're facing. And so over maybe a year or so after that, I just really felt like I was being called to write something about anger, but I didn't want to write a self-help book or anything like that. Those books are out there. I wanted to write something really personal, and I wanted to argue that anger was really important, but we needed to have a different relationship with our anger. And that's really how the book started.
Yeah, amazing. So, there is still, even with the recent news developments, still a tremendous amount of anger out there right now, whether it's about children in cages or white supremacy or various types of corruption and economic injustice, racial injustice. How do we hold all this right now?
Well, we have to understand that as much as we are angry, we're just as much hurt as well. We're moving through what I call in the book heartbrokenness, right? So for me, that's an umbrella term, which means that there's a lot of discomfort, a lot of trauma, a lot of aching, a lot of sorrow, despair, depression that's happening beneath the surface. And I think that we have to shift towards caring much more deeply about ourselves and our communities. We have to move into a culture of care, really honest, direct care. And we have to ask really hard questions about that care, and how to do that for ourselves and for others.
In the moment, there are moments of rage that emerge for people.
Yeah.
What do you think is the first spiritual step one should do in that moment when they know they need to contain it, but it's really just overwhelming?
Yeah, from this kind of Buddhist perspective, one of the things that we're trying to do is notice what's happening, what's arising in our minds. And a lot of us don't know, something really strong like rage triggers, and then all of a sudden, we start reacting, And so in the moment, for me, I have to say, okay, I am experiencing anger, rage, this is happening. And that's going to help me to in a way, not react to it as much, and when I'm not reacting, then I can actually move into a space of experiencing the rage. And what I realized in my practice early on was that I had really never experienced my anger when I first started meditating. And when I had an opportunity to do so, my relationship to anger completely transformed. And I think this is what we should be really engaging in, is trying to actually experience the anger. And it's going to give us a whole different perspective around our anger. And it's going to give us a lot more space to really hold the space for anger and rage when it comes up in the moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sometimes in movements, we can feel the solidarity with others, but other times we can feel so isolated and alone in that time. And I loved your bit about ancestors in there. And I've been thinking a lot about that, about how to connect with the ancestors who don't do violence to us.
Yes.
And from my own Jewish tradition, there's this rabbinic source around Moses is approaching Pharaoh, and as he's approaching, everyone's walking with him in solidarity. And as he gets closer, the people fall away.
Yeah.
And by the end, he's standing there all alone in front of the most powerful guy in the world.
Mhm.
And I think about that moment of people who are completely isolated in their rage or in their pain.
Yes.
And how do we not feel alone in those moments?
Yeah. 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 And I think in that moment is really important for us to reflect on that even though it feels like we're alone, we're not alone. That I am experiencing something that countless beings are experiencing at the same time. Right? And that's going to cut through that sense of disconnection and isolation, and it's going to actually put me into like I don't know this empathic relationship with others. My mind opens and say I am a part of a community of beings who are at the same time experiencing what I'm experiencing right now.
Right. How do we in the activist space
Hmm.
move from a transactional allyship to like an elevated spiritual consciousness of empathy? Let's take an example, not to point fingers at any populations.
Okay.
There's a Mexican activist, there's a black activist, and they're basically transactional in this moment. They're saying, hey,
Mhm.
you stand up for our immigrant community, you stand
Right.
up against for Black Lives Matter, and
Right.
we're going to kind of be allies in a way that we show up for each other. But
Yeah.
how do we move that from a kind of a distrustful space to one of a deeper, a soulful solidarity?
Absolutely. I think that takes a deeper kind of work where we're understanding that I am the other.
Mm,
Right, and we see that work in many spiritual and religious traditions.
yeah,
You know, it's I have to understand that like I that what I am going through is just a reflection of what the other is going through, right? And so my solidarity shouldn't be transactional, but it just should be what we do. Like we should just be together, supporting one another because we're reflections of one another. But we understand that like within marginalized communities, we there's a sense of not having enough, right? So we're always negotiating, trying to broker the resources we need in order to get the basic stuff that we need to be well and to survive. And we have to move out of that mentality as well, and begin to link and to collaborate across difference.
mm, I love that. There's the this worldly sense of
Hmm.
the breaking down the boundaries of self and other that you were
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah.
I wonder also if a theology of reincarnation can help us get there. That
Oh,
like in my past lives and future lives, I
yeah,
am all of those identities that are the
absolutely.
other,
Yeah,
right? And so on a soulful level, I don't know if you believe in reincarnation or not.
yeah, I do.
Okay, so
Yeah,
on a soulful level, like I really have been or will be, I am attached to all those various.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that, well, in my belief system, right, I think that we've been everything.
yeah.
We've been everyone. And we have the saying in Buddhism that every being has at one point in a past life been my mother,
Mm,
and so therefore that helps me to understand that, like, yes, I have been close to all these beings. I have cared for everyone that I could possibly interact with in this life. And that helps me to draw much more closer, much more into a deeper relationship with everyone, including strangers,
yeah,
including people that I don't like.
yeah, yeah. That's amazing. So, I don't know how much you think about child development,
Mhm.
but we're foster parents, and so kids come in our house. At the moment, we have two very young kids, ages 2 and 3, and they can't articulate their anger, their abandonment, their abuse, their
Right.
neglect that they've experienced. We know about it. We can talk about it. But I wonder, how do you share?
Mhm.
How do you help to hold? How do you help How do you help to hold the anger that someone else feels, especially developmentally,
Mhm.
when they themselves are not able to articulate it yet?
Well, it really begins about holding our own anger. If I can't hold my frustration,
Yeah,
then I won't be able to hold the frustration or the anger of others around me. So, of course, many of my friends have young kids, and I'm able to watch and witness how they're working with their children on the spot in moments of anger. And I keep seeing that like the kindness and space they hold for their kids really begins with themselves. And when they don't have the kindness and space for themselves, then it's really hard to share that with
mm,
your kids. And so, but if we're talking about just other adults, right? Again, for me, it's like, and this is for kids as well and for adults, I have to understand that like beneath that anger, frustration is hurt. Like I want to notice and reflect on the hurt that people are trying to be in a relationship with and maybe don't know how to have a really healthy relationship with. And so they're reacting and responding to this energy of anger in a way that may be harmful for themselves and for us. But that doesn't mean that I don't get to set boundaries.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, that's really helpful. So, one of the things I'm thinking a lot about these days is the relationship between our particularism and our universalism.
Hmm.
And I wonder, just to take a few of the identities that you have publicly and that you write about, as a black person, as a man, as a Buddhist, as a gay man,
Hmm.
how does that particularity inform your universalism?
Yeah. Well, well, first of all, it helps me to understand the complexity.
Yeah.
That I, as well as all beings, are complex beings. And it takes work to be in relationships to that complexity. And I understand that when I try to oversimplify myself, I end up creating more harm for
Mm,
myself.
mm,
And I think that many people really want to be simple, really want to be basic because they think it's easier, but that's not the truth, particularly in terms of of the the relative world, right? That's not for me. The truth of the relative world is this beautiful complexity that I can just hold space for, and that holding space actually begins to open the door into the ultimate for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really powerful. Yeah, because it seems like there are some articulations of universalism that people talk about which diminishes or pushes down the difference,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like you're going the opposite direction, which is something I really appreciate. Um, so I think white folks in America, particularly white men, um, we haven't really done our work to the work of understanding whiteness and understanding the history associated with all that. And those who have begun start to hit really, understandably,
Mhm.
with the complicity, negative emotions, shame and guilt, and I wonder on that side of it, if you have any wisdom to share on kind of what to do with some of those negative emotions that emerge in doing that hard justice work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would just say that we have to allow the discomfort to be there. That the discomfort isn't a sign that there's something wrong,
Right.
right? But that discomfort actually begins to tie us into the lived realities of folks who've actually have been the most marginalized
Yeah.
within the world, right? And we have to stay with that discomfort because that's, again, that's the door into which we begin to deeply empathize with others around us,
Mm.
and that takes effort, right? And I think something like guilt can come up and can feel really like a barrier.
Yeah.
It can be really immobilizing, but again, you have to stay with the guilt. Even you have to feel the guilt. You can't intellectualize the guilt, but you have to feel the guilt in the body, feel the guilt in the mind, right? And you have to like hold space for it. And you also have to be gentle with yourself. And then you get that being with the guilt actually begins to subtly, or even like more than subtly, disrupt the ways in which we, you know, may try to go to sleep or numb ourselves again. So the guilt, staying with the guilt wakes us up to the reality of our position and the reality of the positionality of folks who are less privileged and have less power.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just one or two more questions. I want to
Mhm.
honor your time. It seems to me on this point that one of the most cherished, it's hard to call it a value, but let's call it a
Mhm.
value for a minute. One of the most cherished values in America is actually comfort.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call it an idolatry, but
Mhm.
there is an obsession with comfort.
Yeah.
And part of what you're talking about here is living in the struggle, living in the space of
Mhm.
discomfort.
Mhm.
And I wonder when it's so pervasive, this
Mhm.
this this desire for room service, this desire for
Mhm.
more. We don't have to argue for an ascetic ideal,
Mhm.
but how do you think we counter this pervasive notion that a good life is a comfortable life?
Yeah. Well, I think discomfort doesn't necessarily always mean more suffering,
Right.
and I think we have to kind of break that up a little bit. It's not a direct equation. Discomfort equals suffering. So we have to challenge that. And secondly, you know, I think that we can be uncomfortable, but we can also be cared for in that discomfort. I think that's what people are really afraid of. They think if they're uncomfortable, they won't get the care, the support that they need.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a lot of suffering when we're both uncomfortable and uncared for,
Yeah.
you know? And so we have to, in my practice, I have this practice of choosing discomfort, right? And which is a very subtle practice, and so I look at my situation, I say, okay, I am definitely experiencing discomfort. So instead of trying to push it away or struggling with it, I want to enter into this dynamic space where I choose it, I consent to it. And that actually helps to cut through a lot of suffering for me. And I'm able to move into the discomfort and to actually experience what that discomfort is,
Mm.
right? Because for me, experiencing something is actually the key to this experience of liberation
Yeah.
from the discomfort. Doesn't mean the discomfort disappears. It means that I have the space to hold it and I can experience other things along with that discomfort as well. So I can be uncomfortable and happy at the same time. Multiple things can happen at once if I have the spaciousness through experiencing.
Yes, that's so well said. Yeah, and to be able to sit with those paradoxes
Yeah.
and the fullness of being in those moments.
Yeah.
So one last question for you, and it's a big one.
Okay.
But we talk about the work today for each of us, for us collectively. But your book is not just called Love and Rage: The Path Through Anger, but the path of liberation. And so my
Mhm.
question is, like, to dream for a moment
Okay.
of a type of utopia.
Yeah.
What does a liberated world look like to you? And I ask this because I think many people who are very afraid of justice work and spiritual justice work, they're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, where are we headed? Where are we trying to go? Is this socialism? Is this communism? What is this world we're trying to get to? So, and let me break it up in two bits: the inner life and the
Yeah.
outer life. To the extent that you embrace such a dichotomy, of course, it's
Yeah.
interconnected. But
Yeah.
what is the liberation that would be the dream we're working towards in the inner life, and what's the liberation in the physical world that you would talk about?
Well, I would basically say what I'm dreaming about is space.
Yeah,
Like, I want us to have space to be ourselves, and I want the world to be full of a spaciousness. And it can't be spacious if there are systems of power and abuse and discrimination happening, systems like racism and homophobia and so forth. These are systems that are about being rigid and shut down and controlling. And I want to see a world where there's a fluidity happening. And that fluidity is happening within spaciousness. So we get to choose to be who we are. We're not living in a world where we're being told and conditioned into certain ways of being. And so that means that that's a world where everyone gets what they need. And we have to fight against this idea that, like, we have to be good enough to get what we need. Everyone deserves the things that they need to be well. And and we have to really dig out that kind of individualism that we've been informed by, that says that, like, you should only get what you work for. Well, in the perspective of Buddhism, because you're human, you deserve the basic resources of love, compassion. You deserve the basic resources to be well and happy, period. No matter who you are, no matter how much you work or choose not to work, you just deserve it.
yeah. I love that. I love that, because this product of white supremacy that tells us you're only worth what you produce for this system where
Yeah,
others gain,
yeah,
and you don't deserve more than what you ultimately produced. And of
exactly.
course, you get less than what you produced.
Yeah,
And then I love what you said about this move, to use my words, not yours, to move from equality to equity, that sense of
yeah,
that people get what they need
yeah,
as opposed to just get this dish out the same stuff.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
and this opposite of spaciousness, of confinement, whether it's mass incarceration,
Yeah,
it's cages, it's mental illness,
yeah,
it's that to this spaciousness of experience and in the
yeah,
justice realm.
yeah,
So I love that articulation. I'm friends, if like me you're incredibly inspired by the thought and leadership of Lama Rod Owens, I hope, if you haven't yet, to pick up this book, create a study group around it, create a study partner like I have with Love and Rage: The Path of Liberation Through Anger, published by North Atlantic Books just this year of 2020. Lama Rod Owens, thank you so much for this time, and blessings in your continued work.
Thank you so much.